What if poverty just didn't exist? Like, poof, gone. Every single person on Earth has enough food, a place to sleep, clean water, and the basics covered. No exceptions. Sounds like a utopia, right? Some fairy tale your kindergarten teacher told you before the real world slapped you in the face? Well, what if it wasn't? What if it was actually science? What if economists, psychologists, and historians have been quietly building the case that a world without poverty isn't just nice, it's inevitable, if we want to survive as a species? Buckle up. This one's going to get weird. First, what even is poverty? Because people throw that word around like confetti. The World Bank says extreme poverty is living on less than $2.15 a day. $2.15. That's not even a gumball machine in most countries. But here's the thing nobody tells you. Poverty isn't just about money. It's about options. When you're poor, you don't get to choose. You don't choose what you eat, where your kids go to school, whether you see a doctor when your chest feels weird at 2 a.m. Poverty is basically a cage that looks different depending on where you're standing. And in 2024, roughly 700 million people were living in it. 700 million people. That's more than twice the population of the United States. Just surviving. Not living, surviving. So what happens if we snap our fingers and that cage disappears? Let's talk about crime. Because everyone's got an opinion, and most of them are wrong. Here's what the data actually says. The strongest predictor of crime rates isn't culture or morality or whatever your uncle says at Thanksgiving. It's economic inequality. When people can't meet their basic needs and they can see others drowning in excess, that gap, that visible, humiliating gap, is what breeds desperation. And desperation? It's creative. Studies from Harvard, the UN, and basically every criminologist who's ever existed agree. Reduce poverty? Crime drops. Dramatically. In fact, a 2019 study found that a 10% reduction in poverty leads to roughly a 20% reduction in violent crime. 10 to 20. That ratio is wild. So, in our zero poverty world, crime doesn't vanish. Humans are still humans, let's be real. But it goes on a serious diet. Police departments get quieter, prisons get emptier. And that saves an absurd amount of money that gets pumped back into everything else. It's basically a cheat code. Okay, this is the part that genuinely gives me chills. Ready? How many Einsteins have we lost to poverty? Think about it. The person who could have cured cancer, were they born in a village with no school and died at 34 from preventable disease? The engineer who could have solved the climate crisis, were they spending their whole life just trying to not starve? We literally don't know, and that's the tragedy. Economist Paul Romer won a Nobel Prize basically arguing that ideas are the ultimate resource, and ideas come from people. The more people you include in the global knowledge economy, the more breakthroughs you get. It compounds, exponentially. A world without poverty doesn't just help the poor. It accelerates the entire species. We're talking potentially curing diseases faster, building better climate solutions, creating art and music and philosophy we can't even imagine yet. Because right now, we're running at maybe 30% of our creative capacity as a civilization. 30%. The rest? Locked in a cage called poverty. Imagine the other 70%. Okay, first domino to fall? Education. And holy moly does this one hit hard. See, right now, millions of kids skip school. Not because they hate math. Well, okay, some of them definitely hate math. But because they're working, helping the family survive, carrying water, watching siblings. The moment poverty disappears, those kids go to school. All of them. And here's where it gets spicy. Studies show that when you feed a child properly and remove financial stress from their home, their IQ scores measurably increase. Not because they got smarter, they were always smart. They just finally had the bandwidth. Researchers call it cognitive load. When your brain is full of, how do we eat tonight, there's no room left for algebra, or creativity, or dreaming. Remove poverty, and you've basically just unlocked a planet-sized update to human intelligence. Wait for it, because that up. Okay, hold on. We can't just throw confetti yet. Because here's where it gets genuinely strange. If everyone has their basics covered, who does the bad jobs? Seriously, who cleans the sewers? Who works the night shift? Right now, those jobs exist because people need the money. Remove that need, and suddenly, you've got a labor crisis, baby. Economists call this the incentive problem. Some people argue that without financial pressure, innovation slows, ambition fades, people get comfortable. And honestly, a little bit of that might be true. But here's the counterpunch. Studies on universal basic income, which is basically poverty elimination light, found that people don't stop working. They start working on things they actually care about. Entrepreneurs go up. Artists go up. Community volunteering goes up. Turns out, humans don't work just for money. We work for meaning. We're weird like that. Still, society would have to restructure. Fast. And restructuring is messy. Historically, spectacularly messy. But messy doesn't mean impossible. Here's a plot twist the healthcare industry doesn't advertise. Most of what doctors treat today is preventable. Heart disease, diabetes, malnutrition, infections from contaminated water, respiratory disease from cooking over open fires. The WHO estimates that roughly half of all global disease burden is directly linked to poverty. Half! In our poverty-free world, hospitals don't close, but they get very different. Doctors suddenly have time to research the interesting stuff. Rare conditions, aging, mental health. The things we've been ignoring because we were too busy treating preventable suffering. Life expectancy globally? It shoots up. Fast. Which brings us to the uncomfortable truth nobody in this genre ever wants to say out loud. More people alive, living longer, consuming more? Ouch. That puts pressure on the planet. Yeah, we're going there. Okay, real talk. Longer lives plus more resources equals a math problem. But here's what the doomers miss. Poverty is actually terrible for the environment too. Desperate people clear forests to survive. They use the cheapest, dirtiest energy because clean energy is expensive. They can't afford to think about the long game when the short game is survival. Wealthier societies, historically, consume more per person, but they also develop cleaner technology faster. They have the luxury of caring about the future. The sweet spot? A world where everyone is comfortable enough to care and educated enough to innovate, which is exactly what our poverty-free world produces. Is it guaranteed to work out? No, absolutely not. But for the first time in human history, it's a fair fight. So here's the thing. The technology to eliminate extreme poverty, we basically have it. The money? It exists. The global GDP is over $100 trillion a year. Economists estimate ending extreme poverty would cost somewhere around $200 billion annually. That's less than 0.2% of global GDP. Less than what Americans spend on lottery tickets every year. So why haven't we done it? That's not an economics question. That's a values question, a power question, a who benefits from things staying exactly the way they are question. And that's a whole other video. But what we know, what the science, the data, and honestly just basic human decency tells us, is that a world without poverty isn't a fantasy. It's a choice. The question isn't whether we can, it's whether we will. If you made it this far, respect. Genuinely. This stuff matters, and the fact that you're thinking about it, that's how it starts. Leave a comment below. What do you think would be the weirdest consequence of ending poverty? Because honestly, we barely scratched the surface. Subscribe if you want more what-ifs that make you question everything you thought you knew. And, hey, go learn something today. It's free. Which, come to think of it, might be the whole point.